Hello everyone. In this presentation, we will take up the pharmacology of antiemetic agents. Of this presentation, we will be able to achieve the following objectives: what the emesis is, different types of emesis, receptors which are involved in the control of emesis reflexes, pathophysiology of emesis, pharmacology of antiemetic agents, and non-pharmacological treatment of emesis. Let's start up with the definition part. Emesis is also known as vomiting, and it is the expulsion of gastric contents through the mouth. However, nausea is a feeling of discomfort that may or may not precede vomiting. Basically, nausea is accompanied by the decreased gastric tone as well as the peristaltic movement. There are three types of emesis: anticipatory emesis, breakthrough emesis, and refractory emesis. First, we will take up the anticipatory emesis. It is also the feeling of discomfort, and basically it is a conditioned response. It occurs due to the stimulation of reflexes by sights, foul smells, or the loud sound. And most likely it occurs in the patients whose previous post-chemotherapy nausea and vomiting was not well controlled. The second one is breakthrough emesis. Breakthrough emesis occurs even despite of prophylactic treatment. Say for example, if somebody is having the tendency to vomit during the travel time and he or she take up the medicine before travel, even then the patient undergoes emesis, then he or she requires additional rescue medicines. This is breakthrough emesis. Third one is refractory emesis. It occurs during the treatment cycles when antiemetic prophylaxis or the rescue therapy both have failed in the previous cycles. There are more than 6 receptors involved in emetic reflexes. Major 3 are serotonin or 5-hydroxytryptamine 3 receptor, dopamine receptor, substance P or neurokinin 1 receptor. Along with that, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, cannabinoids and GABA also have some potential to either stimulate the emetic center or to control the emesis. So the pathophysiology of emesis says basically emesis occurs when, because of the conditioned reflex, it occurs through our memory, through vision or olfaction. All these three components, they play a major role in generation of emesis sometimes. Like if the person is not feeling good to see something, then it may trigger the responses in the body and stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone present in the brain and creates the vomiting. Similarly with olfaction, all these things, they make up our memory in the brain, and we usually when see these things which are not appealing either in sight or in taste, we compare it with our memory before tasting or consulting with others. These things very much control the nausea and vomiting center. And if we do not feel good to have them, we do not ingest it. Also, the chemoreceptor trigger zone present in the brain, which is a vomiting center in our body, it controls the salivation and the movement of tongue and control of taste as well. Whatever gets ingested either forcefully or not being in our will, then it creates the gag reflexes and our body rejects that particular material and immediately sends the impulses through vagus or through other receptors, say for example serotonin receptors which are present in the stomach lining. They stimulate directly the vomiting center and nucleus tractus solitarius present in the brain, which initiates the nausea and vomiting like feelings in the body. Also, there is some another pathophysiology related to emesis, which is very important to be considered here, it is of chemotherapy induced emesis. Chemotherapy induced emesis basically occurs through the involvement of serotonin receptors. Whenever chemo started, the drug initiates the serotonin release from the enterochromaffin cells of gastrointestinal tract, and these released serotonin, they act on the receptors present on the lining, 5-hydroxytryptamine or serotonin receptors, and they directly stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone or the vomiting center present in the brain. Also, this vomiting center is innervated by or controlled by some other receptors, as we have discussed in the reflexes part, that neurokinin 1 receptors, dopamine receptors, acetylcholine receptors, GABA, cannabinoid, etc. Now the antiemetic agents, there is a wide list of antiemetic agents. First, serotonin antagonist. We have to block the serotonin release so that it will not be able to stimulate the vomiting center in the brain. Similarly, dopamine antagonist, neurokinin inhibitors, cannabinoids, antipsychotic agents, corticosteroids, GABA facilitators, and some atypical antipsychotic agents. Antipsychotic agent and atypical antipsychotic agents have been categorized differently under antiemetic agents because atypical antipsychotic agents are now being under the phase 3 trial for their further evaluation, and till now they have given the results in a very positive manner to control the emesis as compared to the conventional antipsychotic agents. First of all, serotonin 3 receptor antagonist, dolancitron, ganacitron, ondansetron, and palonocitron. Major mechanism of action of these receptor antagonists are to block the serotonin receptors peripherally, that means into the gastrointestinal tract, and thereby inhibiting the stimulation of vomiting center in the brain. Major side effect is non-serious type like headache and constipation. Serious side effects include QT prolongation. Dolancitron, ganacitron, and ondansetron are equally efficacious at equivalent doses except the palonocitron. Dolancitron is now indicated only in chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting in its oral form. Ganacitron is also available in transdermal patch. People used to apply these patches behind the pinna to control the sense of emesis. Usually it has been seen in the patients which travel most or which sail randomly or repeatedly. The duration of action of ganacitron is around 7 days. Alanocitron is another antagonist of this category, and it has the strong binding affinity and even an extended half-life of around 40 hours, which is very much more as compared to the other members of this same category. And this drug is also indicated for the prevention of chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting for highly hematogenic chemotherapy. Say for example, cisplatin chemotherapy, and it may be used before the start of 3-day chemotherapy regimen instead of several daily doses of oral or intravenous serotonin 3 receptor antagonist. Also, it shares some non-serious side effects like headache and constipation. Next is dopamine antagonist, metoclopramide. Metoclopramide basically blocks the dopamine receptors in CTZ or chemoreceptor trigger zone, a vomiting center, and the stimulation of cholinergic activity in gut, thereby increasing the gut motility. And this is how, by increasing the gut motility, it controls the feeling of nausea and antagonize the peripheral serotonin receptors in the intestine. Dopamine antagonist metoclopramide, although is a dopamine antagonist, but it even then controls many functions related with cholinergic activity as well as the serotonin activity. The adverse events related with metoclopramide therapy are mild sedation and diarrhea, along with the extrapyramidal side effects like dystonia and akathisia. It is a kind of rabbit lip-like movements. High doses of metoclopramide are used for the desired results, but intravenously. Then is another important class of drugs, that is neurokinin 1 receptor antagonist, aprepitant and fosaprepitant. Mechanism of action is basically they are highly selective and has the high affinity for substance P or neurokinin 1 receptor. Aprepitant is approved for the use in combination with other antiemetic agents for preventing the acute or delayed nausea and vomiting, and it improves the overall complete response by 20% when it has been given with the serotonin receptor antagonist or the corticosteroid agent. The fosaprepitant is metabolized primarily by the cytochrome P450 enzyme in the liver, and it shares several interactions with oral contraceptives, warfarin and dexamethasone. Fosaprepitant may reduce the effectiveness of oral contraceptives, and they recommend another form of birth control for women of childbearing years when taking with aprepitant. They also decreases the international normalized ratio, clinically significantly decreases the ratio. After completing a 3-day course of aprepitant, it would recommend that patient have their INRs checked within 7 to 10 days. With dexamethasone, they may increase the area under the curve of dexamethasone and decreases the doses by about 40% on days 2 to 3 if dexamethasone is given orally along with the other antiemetic agent. Adverse effects include dizziness, hiccups and asthenia. The cannabinoids are dronabinol and nabilon. Mechanism of action of these two drugs is maybe to mediate some antiemetic activity that has been proposed include the inhibition of prostaglandins and blockade of adrenergic receptors. Adverse effects include drowsiness, dizziness, euphoria, dysphoria, orthostatic hypotension, hallucinations, and time disorientation. Appetite stimulation is also seen with the cannabinoids, and it may in fact be a desirable effect of these agents. Antipsychotic agents, phenothiazine derivatives, which include prochlorperazine, chlorpromazine, and promethazine. All these drugs, they share the mechanism of action by blocking the dopamine receptors in the chemoreceptor trigger zone. Major adverse events include the hypotension, and chlorpromazine is often preferred in children because it lacks the extrapyramidal side effects, or it has the fewer side effects as compared to other members of phenothiazine derivative. Then the next class is butyrophenone derivative of antipsychotics, that is haloperidol and droperidol. Mechanism of action of these is similar to the phenothiazine derivatives, but they offer the different chemical structure that may bind differently to the dopamine receptors and offer an initial alternative when a phenothiazine fails. It is devoid of hypotension, as we have seen this with the phenothiazine derivatives, but with butyrophenone derivative, hypotension is less frequent, and the use of droperidol as an antiemetic has fallen out because the risk of QT prolongation or the torsade D points, that is the severe side effect of this drug, it causes the severe arrhythmias as well as death. Then is corticosteroids, dexamethasone and methylprednisolone. Although the mechanism of action is not well understood, though they act by inhibiting the prostaglandin synthesis in the cortex region. Adverse effects include euphoria, anxiety, insomnia, increased appetite, mild fluid retention, rapid intravenous administration may associated with the transient and intense perineal, vaginal or anal burning. Dexamethasone has been studied more often in clinical trial as compared to other drugs in the corticosteroid therapy. Adding the steroids to anti-emetic agents boost up the efficacy by 10 to 20%. Next is atypical antipsychotic agent olanzapine. It is approved by FDA for the treatment of psychosis and bipolar disorders and used often labeled as alternative agent for the prevention of nausea and vomiting in highly hematogenic regimens. And it may be used as an option for breakthrough emesis. Mechanism of action is it blocks the multiple neurotransmitters including dopamine, serotonin, catecholamines, acetylcholine and histamine as well. Adverse effects include sedation, dry mouth, increased appetite, weight gain, postural hypotension and arrhythmias. Olanzapine has been associated with an increased risk of hyperlipidemia and hyperglycemia and new onset of diabetes. Therefore, the caution in elderly patient because use in this patient population has been associated with an increased risk of death and also the increased risk of in cerebrovascular adverse events with dementia related psychosis. Recently, the phase 3 study was conducted for evaluating the olanzapine versus the aprepitant, which is a neurokinin 1 receptor antagonist, is highly hematogenic chemotherapy regimens. That is why atypical antipsychotic agents have been categorized differently rather than the conventional antipsychotic agents. Overall response rates were similar in both the groups, but the proportion of patients without nausea was higher in olanzapine in the delay period resulting in a higher rate of nausea control. Therefore, as an alternative to aprepitant, the olanzapine based regimen may be an option in highly or moderate hematogenic regimens according to the most recent guidelines. Now, the last part, apart from the pharmacological treatment, some non-pharmacological methods can be used to control the emesis. Like we should take up the small frequent meals, divide the whole portion into small meals. The food should be taken at room temperature. It should not be very hot, should not be very cold. The patient should take lots and lots of fruit, drink plenty of liquids, and should adopt the light food after control over the nausea and vomiting. If the person is having a tendency to vomit or to have the feeling of nausea and vomiting in the morning time, then the person should try on salty crackers and biscuits. The person should inhale air deeply, fresh air. He or she should be away from the smells or fragrances, and the patient or the person should not adopt of sleeping habit even just after the dinner. He or she should make a habit of going for a walk for 10 minutes and then go to the bed. These things, non-pharmacological treatment, they can help the patient to control the vomiting or to suppress the chemoreceptor trigger zone up to some extent without the treatment or along with the treatment as per the directions from the physician to control the emesis very much. I hope with this presentation you would be able to gain the basic objectives which we had set up in the beginning. What the emesis is, what are its different types, receptors which are involved in controlling the reflex of an emesis, then pathophysiology, and the pharmacological as well as non-pharmacological treatment of MSS. Thank you.